I think leadership is all about influence. That we all have influence, so then in return, we all have the ability to be a leader. And sometimes I hear some of you talking about, well, I'm not really a leader. I don't have a role. I don't have a position. I don't work for a company. I'm not in higher management. I'm not a high level leader in that sense. And I always like to push back because, like I've said before, influence is a big part of that. If you have influence, I think you have the ability to lead and you are a leader. But another take on this is that leadership is about being responsible. And we all have some level of responsibility in our lives. Welcome to the It Matters podcast. I'm your host, Walter Perez, and let's dive in as we help you grow your mindset and elevate your leadership. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the It Matters podcast. My name is Walter Perez, and I'm your host, and I am very grateful that you're joining me in another episode. I have a lot of fun doing these because I'm learning, I'm growing, and I hope that we're adding some value to you, because I really do feel that one of my callings is to help other leaders become better. And this desire that when we all lead well, it's really a win-win scenario for people. And so I'm hoping that we can make a priority in developing our leadership skills, because then a lot of other people are going to benefit from that. And so thank you for joining me. Please comment, ask a question, let us know what you're thinking, so we can continue to improve this podcast. And I wanted to bring you a solo episode today in this whole concept of being a responsible leader. And I wanted to dissect that a little bit, because you've heard me talk about that I think leadership is all about influence, that we all have influence, so then in return, we all have the ability to be a leader. And sometimes I hear some of you talking about, well, I'm not really a leader. I don't have a role. I don't have a position. I don't work for a company. I'm not in higher management. I'm not a high level leader in that sense. And I always like to push back because, like I've said before, influence is a big part of that. If you have influence, I think you have the ability to lead and you are a leader. But another take on this is that leadership is about being responsible. And we all have some level of responsibility in our lives, and we just have to become aware of it. We just have to realize and become present and say, okay, where in my life do I have responsibility? And then look back and go, okay, how am I going to then lead well through and with this responsibility? So, for example, if you're a single individual and you don't have a family and that's all you got, well, you got responsibilities still to pay bills. You got responsibilities potentially at your job. You're supposed to show up at a certain time. You're supposed to carry on a task, a role that you've been given. There's responsibility in that. And to me, the way you handle yourself, the way you carry yourself, the way you lead yourself is a responsible leader. So learning how to lead in those capacities is super ultra important. I believe in that idea that if you know how to handle and be a good steward of the small things, then when you have the opportunity to lift a higher responsibility and to have a bigger responsibility, then you will make yourself not only available, but you'll prove yourself that you can do that task. And so it starts with the small things. And so taking responsibility for the little things is just as important as taking responsibility for the big things. And so understanding that. So let's say if you're a parent, well, you have a giant responsibility. Like you have kids, you're married, or you have a family. Like there's a responsibility that takes place there that is like no other, in my opinion. You've heard me talk about that leadership starts in the home. That's exactly what I mean. Leading yourself, leading your family, so on. But as you move through life and you have different experiences, every season brings different responsibilities. And every responsibility is an opportunity to lead. And so here's where I want you to really think about that, because too many times we play a comparison game of like, oh, well, I don't have that role or I don't have that position. And yes, leadership is involved with that. And sometimes what I also hear is that, well, I'm not a business owner, so I'm not a leader. Or I don't run a nonprofit organization. I didn't start something. I'm not an entrepreneur that way or a creator that way. I want you to get that out of your mind, because leadership is more than that. Leadership is goes beyond this idea of a title and of this position. And sometimes we get caught up in that comparison and we forget that we all have responsibilities, and responsibilities are super important. And you might have to identify that in your own life. You might have to identify what the weight of your responsibility really is where you're at today, and stop playing a comparison game with somebody else, because somebody else might have a giant role, but the responsibility of where you're at today in this season, what might seem like insignificant, what may seem small, is a big deal, is a really big deal. For example, like I said, if you are leading yourself only, that's a huge responsibility, because the choices you make today are going to affect you and are going to impact where you might end up today. And being able to learn on how to be a person that knows how to choose well, because sometimes we get caught up in this idea, well, if I don't make the decision, I'm going to be okay. If I don't activate, if I don't pursue something and make the choice that way, I'm not choosing and I'm going to just be okay. Well, let me tell you this. Having clarity on this is that when you choose not to choose, that's choosing, as you heard me say that. Not choosing is choosing whatever you're going to get out of that. And so choosing to just kind of sit back, maybe chill, relax, be inactive, procrastinate, whatever it is, that's you choosing. And so you need to take responsibility for those as well. And when we become leaders that want to say, okay, well, I'm going to be that responsible leader, because being responsible is leadership in itself. And so I'm going to be intentional on what I want to be responsible for. And you know what? Sometimes life happens and there's responsibilities that land on our laps that we didn't choose, or we didn't hope that it would work out that way. But we got to step up and step in, because that's what leaders do. And so maybe you need help. Maybe you need understanding. Maybe you need some insight or some wisdom from other people. Well, then you can choose to seek that, so then you can make the best decision that you can in the season that you're in. And so taking responsibility, I think, is going to be key. And everybody, regardless of your age, you have a level of responsibility. And I think that if you sit back long enough here and think about that, you're going to realize you can make a list. You're going to be able to make a big giant list of what you're responsible for, and just then start there and say, how am I leading in these different areas of my life? Last episode I talked about how we can learn leadership from a grade fiver. Well, students in elementary, however old you are, you all have responsibilities. Will it be cleaning your room, whether doing your laundry, whether making sure that you're doing your homework, whatever it is. If you're keeping an eye on your siblings, or making sure that you're getting certain tasks done, those are all levels of responsibilities. They don't seem as heavy as when you grow older and you got to pay bills and have a job and all that, for sure. But it's all responsibilities. And so you just have to figure out that you live your life thinking about these responsibilities and making sure you're doing your best and you're showing up to making sure that you're doing your part. We also have to take responsibility for the things that don't go well. So you see, it's really easy to take credit when things are going awesome. And in a sense, we take responsibility. Like, yeah, we got that business deal, we got that thing done, whatever it was. Yeah, that was me. I take responsibility over that. I was a good team leader, whatever it is. But sometimes leaders are not so quick to take responsibility when things don't go well, when things fail. And so I just want to tell you that that's part of leadership as well, is learning to take responsibility and not playing this blame game, not playing this, it was your fault, not my fault. Be a leader, step up and take responsibility, and then come up with a solution on how to make sure you either get out of that problem or make sure it doesn't happen again. So taking responsibility for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so when we take responsibility that way, it makes us even a better leader. especially when we're leading teams. Because if you're a leader, you're going to have people following you. And so if you're going to have people following you, want to make sure that people are following you for the right reasons, that they respect you, that they want to actually work for you. They also want to, collaborate with you, whatever it is, but give them good reasons. And one way is by showing them that you're a responsible leader. And so think about that, because too many of us are just kind of making up excuses and reasons why we're not going to lead and why we don't have to. But yet, uh, if we have the choice to change our life. I've been thinking a lot about different things, and some of those things are like, am I happy in the season that I'm in, when it comes to my business? Am I happy with the habits that I've put in place this year? How am I doing with my goals? How am I doing with my dreams? Back in January, I kind of did a reset, did some goals, and make sure that I've had a commitments put in place and a process put in place. And I'm checking, and I'm looking at like, you know what? I've dropped the ball in some areas. I'm not very happy with that. Well, the good news about all that is that when I think about that I have the choice to change. I have the choice to take responsibility over the inactivity that I've had in my life this year. I have the ability to be responsible and say, well, I don't like that, so I'm going to change it. I don't have to accept my life. I can go and transform it and say, okay, I can draw a line today in the sand and say, I'm going to change something. Sometimes we get caught up in this posture of going, man, if our business was just doing this thing, if our projects were working out this way, then it would be better. Well, whoa, 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 whoa. Why don't we pause for a moment and say, well, what if I could change the way I'm doing things, and I'm willing to learn and adapt, and I'm going to do it that way? If you're in a situation in your business or organization where you feel like if there was a new person that came into your business and they would do a better job than you, well, it's easy to say, well, if we had that person, well, why don't you pause yourself, maybe fire yourself for a moment, hire yourself back in and say, okay, I'm going to be that person. And if I can't be that person, I'm either going to learn how to be that person, or I'm going to hire people or bring on a team that will be able to equip me in my weaknesses and give me the support that I need to make that happen. See, just don't accept that reality and learn how to be responsible. And responsibility, yes, can be followed with some skill sets and team work and team players and different different things that need to be in place. But first, choose to be a responsible leader. Choose that, hey, I'm going to make it happen. If it's up to anybody, it's going to be up to me. If my team needs to have better morale or a better culture, it's going to be up to me. If I need to be the example, well, then it starts with me. I'm going to take responsibility for what I can do, and then allow that to ripple into everything else I do. I'm going to be a responsible leader. And so I want you to think about that. I hope this encourages you. Think about how you can take responsibility, how you can step up to your responsibilities that you do have, and maybe you need to bring on new responsibilities. Maybe you're in a season where you have to let go of some responsibilities, and that takes not only maturity, but it takes humility. And it's okay. It doesn't always have to mean it's a failure when you're giving something up. Sometimes that means it's wisdom that you're going, I know my capacity. I know where I'm at. But be a leader that steps into it and steps up, and don't make excuses. And then you let go of something and all you do is sit back and do nothing. Be that leader that's always moving and adapting, and be a leader of vision. If you need some clarity on your responsibility, make sure that you're stepping back and saying, okay, what's my purpose? What do I feel that my purpose is? Maybe what's your calling? What's that inner desire? What is that inside of me that's burning, that wants to get out? Like, what is that just fires me up? Okay, well, I'm going to take responsibility for my passions and my desires and my purpose, and I'm going to then put them into action. Like, figure out what is that makes you tick, and then put vision into place, and make sure that you have a vision for your life so you know where you want to go. Put some goals in place, put a mission behind it, and get to work so that you can accomplish those things that you want. Some of us are not accomplishing what we want because we're either scared, afraid, or we just don't want to take responsibility because it feels heavy. Well, you're going to feel the heaviness one way or another. You either can feel the heaviness of being a responsible leader, or you're going to feel the heaviness of the regret, or the guilt potentially, or the shame, where you feel like you haven't stepped into your potential, or you're not living your life to the fullest. Be a leader that's striving, and be a leader that's asking for help and seeking wisdom. Get the right people around you, and take it one step at a time, but make sure that we're moving forward, because there's no such thing as standing still. You're either moving forward or moving backwards. You're either growing or you're dying. You're either growing or decaying. What is it going to be? Make the choice today. Be the responsible leader. Let's encourage each other. Let's work together, and let's do our part, so we can just make this, like as I always say, I want to make this the world and our community a better place to live in, because we have leaders like you that are doing their part. Anyway, I hope this adds value. I hope this makes you think, and I appreciate you joining me on another episode of the It Matters podcast. We'll catch you on the next one, and remember, it's a win-win when the leader leads well. Bye for now.